and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Tactical Breakdown series, our show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight to keep you guys up to date and educated about all of Arsenal's varying transfer targets. And today we're going to be talking about Alexander Isak from Real Sociedad, off to the Euros this summer with Sweden as well. And Arsenal have been linked with a serious money move and interest with the former Borussia Dortmund striker. Some complicated situation going on with buyback clauses from Dortmund, situation whereby Arsenal would need to move on a striker to get him. But we're not fussed about that. We want to know the player. We don't want to know who he is. And we're going to get into all of that. But before we do, please make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on, so you never miss a show. And you can, of course, help support the channel as well by joining up as a member, giving you access to some exclusive stuff and, of course, our Discord server as well. So without further ado, let's crack on with today's show. And I'm joined by Alan Feehely, who is, of course, from La Liga Lowdown, great Spanish football expert. And a great guy to talk to in general about Spanish football and everything to do with it too. So without further ado, I want to get his thoughts on generally how surprised he is about these links being there with Arsenal.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised with the links, to be honest with you. I think that in the market we have this summer, where there's so many kind of, suitors for a top-class striker with a lot of projection, I think there was always going to be a bit of a scramble for strikers who aren't Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland, because of course there's only one Kylian Mbappe and one Erling Haaland, and the pool of suitors who could actually prize them away from Borussia Dortmund and Paris Saint-Germain respectively are very, very small, from a financial sense, but also from a sporting sense in terms of fulfilling their ambitions. So I think that, there was always going to be an interest in the tier of strikers below those guys, and I think that of that tier, Alexander Isak is a very, very interesting prospect. He's only 21 years old. He's got so much potential. Genuinely, he's got the bones of being a complete striker in that he's really quick. He's kind of quite a powerful frame without being overly strong, but he has the frame and the kind of, the ability to become a really strong and kind of powerful striker if you just fill out and put on a bit of weight in the next few years. He's kind of very much a modern striker in that he's not the classic number 9, but he can fulfill various roles across the kind of attacking positions, and he has ability in build-up play as well as actually finishing the ball. So he's a really interesting player for me, I think. He did a very good year last year with Real Sociedad. They started the season really well and then tailed off in the second half of the season, but he was consistent, especially in the second half of the season. So his kind of form almost kind of not mirrored, but was kind of the opposite to the team's form in many ways. And it shows he doesn't rely on having a strong team around him, a team that's built for him in many ways. Because while La Real were kind of struggling in that second half of the season, he was being very, very consistent and proving decisive in important games. He ended the season with 17 goals in all appearances in La Liga, which is more than Zlatan Ibrahimovic, his Swedish counterpart, managed back in when he was at Barcelona in 2009-2010. 2009-2010. So there's a lot of hype from him, and I think this summer could be a breakout summer for him. I think that competing at the Euros against Spain especially, he could do some serious damage. I view him as one of the best young talents at the Euros. Borussia Dortmund retain a buyout clause in his contract for 30 million euros, which is well below his market value, I would say. His market value is, I would say, maybe around 50 or 60, just given how rare it is of a player of his potential, even though his buyout clause at La Real is 70 million, I believe. So I would say that any suitors wouldn't really be interested in triggering that buyout clause unless he was phenomenal at the Euros. But I think there's quite a few who would be interested in maybe going for a tier below that. Arsenal obviously have been linked, and Dortmund too, even though he said his past is Dortmund, he doesn't really want to go back there, but there's talk that even Dortmund could actually trigger the buyout clause with the intention of flipping him for a profit. So I'm not sure how that work, how he would see that going on, but that's something that's been talked about. And like I said, is Alexander Isak a genuine world-class talent of the ilk of Mbappe or Haaland. No, he's not. He's still rather inconsistent. He's not had a full season where he's been a proper baller from the beginning to the end. But at 21, that comes with time. He's not someone who's peaked already. He's not burnt out. He's got a lot of potential, a lot of positive attributes. And I think that if he was at the right club with the right structure and network around him, he could really flourish, I'd love to see him stay in La Liga and see him develop there, obviously, given that I cover the league closely. But I think that were Arsenal to secure his services, as has been rumoured, then I think it would be good business for them. And training somebody like Lacazette, moving him on and bringing in someone younger, more mobile, more projection like Isak is definitely good business.
A massive thank you to Alan for giving us all the insight on Alexander Isak there. You can find Alan's Twitter handle in the description. And it is an interesting profile of player if Arsenal were to be linked to. I kind of think there's a lot of factors that go with this, a lot of variables that Arsenal don't really have. Not necessarily they don't have control over, but that would need to fall into place. A decision would need to be made in regards to Arsenal's striker, be it Lacazette or Aubameyang. There's rumours today about Eddie Nketiah being given a new deal. I imagine that's to then loan him out and to protect his value, of course. But yeah, I'm not sure whether or not it's an easy deal to do. And then you've got the situation that Alan talked about with the buyback clause that Borussia Dortmund have for around 30 million euros, which you'd have to say is a real steal for them. Would they activate that to then make a profit? You'd imagine that they'd be silly not to, unless Real Sociedad buy out that buyback clause. But you'd think it would be significant, probably around it'd be probably around the 10 million to 20 million euros to buy it out. Or I'd imagine more close to the 10 million, because they would basically need to pay a fee that would be in and around similar to the profit that they would make Borussia Dortmund on it for them to accept that being bought out. So you'd think it'd be closer to the 10 million euro figure, purely speculatory. So don't take it anything other than that. But I think it's certainly one that Arsenal are well placed, basically, to be interested in, and certainly a player that we should be looking at for the future if we want to sign a striker. Anyway, let's go on to the next part of the show, which is, of course, looking into his statistics and seeing how he compares to some of our other players after, of course, finishing off our expert insight. We will start off by comparing him to three other forwards, two of which we already have, one of which Arsenal fans are very much excited about, being Tony from Brentford, Aubameyang and Lacazette being the other two. So let's see how they stack up. If we look at their heat maps, first of all, you'll see that he is very much a central striker. His main heat is being found inside the box, same as you can see there with Tony as well. A similar kind of feel to Lacazette's in a way, but Lacazette does prefer to drop a lot deeper than what we see from Isak. His link-up play, you'd argue, is maybe slightly better from that area, but we'll look into some of the statistics that may prove that slightly different. Aubameyang, as we know, has been played a lot out on the left-hand side, and so therefore we're seeing him skewed out to that left flank at the same time. If we look at their goals per 90 in comparison to their XG stats, it's a really good statistic. Rather than just looking at how many raw goals they've scored, we're averaging the amount of goals they've scored in their leagues across a 90 minutes. So you've got the appearance taken into account and the amount of time they've spent on the pitch taken into account. And by looking at them in comparison to the XG statistics, the expected goals, if their goals per 90 is above that of their expected goals, then they're outperforming the goals that they would be expected to score and scoring some tougher shots they wouldn't typically be expected to score. If they're below that, it tends to mean that they're missing more chances than they're currently taking, which is a little bit concerning. That only applies in this example to Aubameyang. This season, he has a goals per 90 of 0.36 in comparison to a 0.4 XG per 90, which shows pretty much the season that he's had. It's been pretty disappointing from the Gabonese forward. He's not taken the chances that we usually expect him to. He's missed some really big ones. Lacazette has too, but he's also taken some shots that go and score goals that he wouldn't be expected to score more frequently, and that's led him to have an XG of 0.49, but a goals per 90 rating of 0.57. Ivan Toney coming out really well here with a 0.65 goals per 90 ahead of his XG at 0.6. But Alexander Isak comes out really well too with a 0.63 goals per 90 over a 0.58 XG statistic. Looking at the shots and where they're typically taken from, you can see from Isak's, they're all pretty much inside the box bar one, which is out to the left-hand side. And a lot come very close and inside the 6-yard box, showing his kind of his poaching abilities. But what we do see is that he likes to take shots from in and around the 18-yard box, outside the 6-yard box, showing that he can finish from a multitude of areas across the box. Not really favouring a specific side. You might argue they're ever so slightly more to the left of centre, but typically found in the middle of the box. Whereas you look at someone like Toney, his goals are coming much closer to that 6-yard box. You would look at him much more as a poacher than you would Isak, which is certainly falling in the favour of Alexander Isak, making chances for himself. This does show, of course, the last 75 shots that they've taken. We should add that into this because Toney has scored a hell of a lot more goals than what's being shown on that graphic there. But as a sample size of the last 75 shots that they have all taken, you are seeing this from the perspective. I do quite like the fact that Toney's got this wild shot, if you can see that, to the bottom right-hand corner of his graphic. Nearly near the halfway line, he took that shot from. Very intriguing. If we look at Lacazette, he too has got kind of goals from all around the box, inside the box specifically, but not skewed towards either inside or outside the 6-yard box, but more concentrated to a central area. As Aubameyang, you can certainly see the skew to the left-hand side where he's cut inside on his right foot to take the shots on at goal. If we now go into touches into the box, Isak is leading the way here with 4.56. He does like to get in the box and get on the ball in the box as much as feasibly possible to create chances for himself in comparison to some of the other players on our list. If we look at how their dribbles compare, he comes out with the most frequent dribbler, which doesn't tell me that he's not the type to necessarily just be a poacher. He does like to carry the ball and create chances for himself. However, he is the least successful of all the dribblers on this list here, with Aubameyang, is unsurprising to be honest, coming out with the 66.1% success rate of his dribbles, whereas Isak coming out with just below 50 at 43.9%. Toney and Lacazette coming out with above average of their dribbles as well, with 54 and 59 percentages. If we go on to the offensive duels and how they're coping when they're on the ball, Isak again coming out near the bottom end here with Toney, which does actually surprise me a bit considering their kind of target man esque sort of style of play that you do associate with them sometimes. 35.7% win rate of those offensive duels, but he is at the higher end at 8.83 offensive duels per game. Aubameyang coming out in the lowest in regards to frequency, but ironically the highest in regards to the winning of those offensive duels. If we look at their aerial duels, 4.42 aerial duels for Alexander Isak is nowhere close to that of Toney at 7.3. And Toney is certainly a player that adds the dynamic of being a lot better in the air than all of the others on this list. Not only is the highest in terms of his aerial duels at 7.3 per match, but he's also winning the most of them with a 42.9%. So if you wanted a striker that was a little bit different and more of your target man for an aerial header, Toney certainly comes out on top in this area. However, you have to consider, is that the way that Arsenal are going to play? Yes, Arsenal do and have crossed into the box a lot, but do we see that as Arsenal's style going forwards? I'm not so sure. I think we are going to see a limit at the amount of balls that go into the box in an aerial sense and move more towards a low-driven style, a cutback style, and an incisive ball being played through to the striker. So maybe a Toney style doesn't necessarily suit us. I do think that Arsenal should look to bring in a striker that is of a different style and that can be good in the air, but maybe not as our primary man, maybe as more of a plan B type that most clubs do tend to have, that you need to throw in the last few minutes to get a goal. Maybe we've already got that and a Nikolai Moller coming through, or maybe Balogun can be that player. I don't really think he can, but we need someone that's different than we already have because they're pretty similar to what ones we've already got at the club. If we go on to their passing statistics, he's got a 75.9% passing accuracy, which is the third highest on our list behind Aubameyang and Lacazette. Maybe that would increase if he was to move to Arsenal, but still, Toney doesn't come out great here with his passing. It's not in his game, is Toney. He's your poacher. He's your fox in the box, the guy that's going to finish those chances.
not passing and his link-up play is not necessarily part of it. If we go into the last statistic that we're going to look at today, which is their passes into the box, Tony again comes out on the higher end of the accuracy here with 68.8, just below that of Lacazette's with 74.3. But Aubameyang is certainly the most creative, playing on that left-hand side, seeing plenty of passes go into the box, averaging more than 2 of those per match, whereas Isak coming out towards the lower end of the frequency spectrum in this comparison chart. So there you go. There is all of the possible scenarios that you can see statistically with these guys. In regards to Isak's injury history, he hasn't actually received an injury according to Transfermarkt at Real Sociedad. He did experience a few frequent knocks whilst at Borussia Dortmund, but not necessarily anything to worry about. And that's certainly been shown in how frequent he's been able to play for Real Sociedad as well. Consistency is going to be the biggest key for Isak. He's still a young player and needs to do a lot of developing and improvement, but he certainly has shown the potential to be a really good striker moving forwards, and he is definitely one to watch at the European Championships for Sweden, with of course, Ibrahimovic going because of injury. They do have Berg as well that can play up front as a more experienced option, but Isak is certainly an exciting talent that we're going to want to see more of, basically. Anyway, it's been an absolute pleasure to give you all those stats, and we do now move on to our last section of the show, which is getting your guys' thoughts in the chat box. Before we do, though, a selfish plug. This magazine, the Modern Footballer magazine, issue 5, is now out. Link is in the description for this. It includes work by myself, by Drew, by Jeremy Smith, lots of people, lots of European stuff. So please do go and check it out. Link is in the description. There's only about single digits of hard copies left. It has sold really, really well this time round. I mean, the last few times it's sold exceptionally well. It's going better and better every time they release one. So if you do want to get your hands on one, you do have to be quick. You can get a cheaper digital copy if you want to get hold of that, which is about £3 something. The hard copies are about £11 something, but they're obviously much, much nicer to have a hard copy of the thing to collect them if you want to. But yeah, some really good work in there. I've written a piece on Kieran Tierney in there if you want to go and check that out. But make sure you give it a look. Anyway, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Harish says Isak is good, but 50 to 60 million is overpriced. Striker with far better finishing ability and consistency. Patson Daka is available for 20 million, which is a very good shout. If you could get a quick player that's good at finishing, Daka does fill that role very well and is, of course, a lot cheaper. However, is proving it in a much less high-profile league, which does make a difference. Isak playing in La Liga and on the international stage for a decent international side does add to his value and lessens kind of the risk associated with the transfer as well. John says, why not pursue Willock for Saint-Maximin? Do you mean swap them? I do not want Saint-Maximin. No. He's a flair player. He's someone that's full of tricks and skills, but his end product is certainly lacking. We don't need that. We need finishing. We need end products. That's what we need at Arsenal. Daka's going to go to Leipzig. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. Thapello says, would I prefer Jonathan David or Isak? I think Isak, because of just more of his varied style, his ability to show what he's capable of on different levels. I think Jonathan David's a good striker. He's rode the wave of Lille's success this season, but has been outshone by Burak Yilmaz, whereas I think Isak is kind of paving his own path now at Real Sociedad and is a more independent striker than the Canadian international. But that's just my pick of the two. Let's go for Talex, who says, just give Lacquer a 1-year extension. It helps build up play and can hold it up as well. To be honest, this is certainly I'm more in favour of seeing Arsenal just focus their financial power on the midfield and the defence this summer. Give Lacquer a 1-year extension, protect the value, move forwards. That's the camp that I fall into in this one. Blige says, why not use Willett for Freddie Woodman? I mean, Newcastle are signing a new goalkeeper, I believe, from Southampton. Gunn, I think that's going. So maybe they will be willing to sell Woodman. Woodman. We'll have to go and wait and see on that one. Deary me. Let's go in to have a look at some more of your questions here. Let's see what Zero Deaths says. The squad we have is perfect. I won the title with Arsenal on FIFA. Deary me. Boadu says Boadu says Josh Shakespeare. I mean, if you want to be called Boadu, I can certainly call you that. Boadu, Vlahovic and Klajic would be better for Arsenal. Boadu, I think, is a lot less proven than Alexander Isak at RZ Alkmaar. I'm not sure he's the better option. Vlahovic is obviously a very highly rated striker playing at Fiorentina. And has had a very kind of breakout season that's been very successful. Klajic as well, I'm not so sure if he is the type to go for. I like his variation. I like the fact he's good in the air. But again, we'll see how he gets on at the European Championships for Austria this summer. I'm not sure if he'd translate necessarily as well as Isak would to Arsenal. Let's scroll up and get some more thoughts specifically relating to our striking department. Sahil says, Tom, do you think Dortmund might buy him back if they sell Haaland, which is a good shout. Haaland could leave this summer, and Isak may be a type of, not similar in regards, I mean, who's similar to Haaland? Not many people. But he is a fast-paced player that has got a little bit of aerial ability to him and physicality as well. Maybe he would be a decent striker for the fee they pay, but maybe they want to bring in someone even cheaper that they could sell on one day for a huge amount of money once again. But yeah, maybe they are related to Hill, so it's a very good link that you've made there. K-Man says, where's the stat to show if they're any good in the Prem? Yeah, if only that exists. If only that exists. Any way of determining whether they can press effectively, not without obviously just watching them basically and seeing their running. You see his heat map, it basically shows him much preferring to be in and around the box as something specifically, but you'd need to go and watch Alexander Isak play on a consistent basis. But pressing usually comes more so from the style of coaching and the tactics, not specifically related to him as a player. It is very difficult to ascertain whether or not it's the player's prerogative, whether he's pressing as vehemently as you want someone to, or whether it's down more so to the coaching at the club. You could sign a player that is heavily coached to press where they are, and then that doesn't translate because it's come all from the style of play of the team that he's been playing at. Kanav says, would you take Lokonga, Basuma, Onana and Chelik Mazraoui? I think we should just keep Lacazette and Aubameyang and give the opportunities to Martinelli. This is, again, I've already said this, I think we lean much more towards the extension of Lacazette for a year and move forward from there. And it looks like the questions are going off on a different tangent, which is probably my cue then to wrap things up. We will do a main Q&A show tomorrow at 5 p.m, so make sure you tune in for that. We do try to keep these shows as specifically towards the area of focus that we're looking at, which is, of course, the striking department. So if you've got a random question, make sure you throw and join us for our 5 p.m. show tomorrow, our Q&A session. In that, I will also be revealing our UEFA, it is UEFA, isn't it? European Championships sweepstake, which our Discord server members have been taking part in, along with some of our podcast regulars as well. If Lee Judges gets France, I swear to God, I'm going to lose my mind. We'll see what happens in tomorrow's show. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. transfer update. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you guys as always. And as always, up the Arsenal.